Today we're talking about a God who knew exactly how he was going to die. We are looking at fate through the life of a man and a father, but not just any father, the All-Father. Now Odin knew how the world would end. He knew that the gods would fall, the sky would burn, and the wolf would come for him. Yet even with the knowledge of these events, he could not accept what fate had in store. Instead, Odin spent his entire existence trying to stop what would inevitably come to pass. Not to save the world, but to escape his own fate. If you enjoy mythology and deeper dives like this, consider subscribing. Odin is known by most people as the Norse god of war and the foremost god in the Norse pantheon, or as the All-Father. In Norse myth, he ruled over all of the gods, and is father to Thor, Balder, and was a father figure to Loki, but he is a more complex character than this. In his home, Valhalla, Odin would feast with fallen warriors before riding into battle with them on the back of his horse, Sleipnir, destroying enemies with his legendary spear, Gungnir. He was a mighty warrior, but that isn't why he ruled. He ruled because he was the wisest and most knowledgeable of the Aesir, and yet he still looked for more knowledge wherever he could find it. Odin was a god obsessed with knowledge, so obsessed he would pay any price for it. One of the more known stories of his pursuit is when he journeyed to the well of Mimir. Now he did not travel there as a conqueror, but as an ordinary man. The well sat beneath one of the great roots of Yggdrasil, guarded by Mimir, whose wisdom was said to surpass the gods. The waters of the well did not grant strength or power. They granted something far more valuable to Odin, knowledge. But there was a price to be paid for this knowledge. A price Odin already knew would need to be paid, one that wasn't paid in gold, cattle, or some other tribute. Rather, it was his eye, his right eye. And Odin did not argue or bargain. Instead, he reached up and plucked his eye from its socket without hesitation and dropped it into the well. Once his eye was floating in the water, he was given a horn containing water from the well, and upon drinking it, he was given knowledge of the cosmos and could see forces that shaped worlds and the pattern beneath events. One eye would close forever, while the other would see beyond what any other being in existence was able to perceive. Even the well wasn't enough to satiate Odin's lust for knowledge. He wished to reveal the secrets still hidden from him, powers woven into the fabric of existence that he did not understand. So this time, Odin made himself the offering and hung himself from Yggdrasil. Yggdrasil was known as the World Tree, and its branches stretched across the realms. It was here that Odin pierced himself with his own spear, where he would hang for 9 days and 9 nights with no food or water. The wind blowing against him and the weight of his own body pulling at his wound. Eventually, from this suffering, Odin would come to understand the runes, symbols of magic, power, and control he gained through suffering. Odin gave parts of himself away in exchange for understanding, and eventually that understanding would show him something that no one would want to see: the manner of their death. In his search for knowledge, he was shown that one day a wolf would kill him and the world would be destroyed. He believed knowledge meant leverage, and that if he understood enough, he could alter what was coming. But knowledge doesn't actually give you control. Rather, it only removes ignorance. In Norse culture, fate wasn't something you could avoid, alter, or negotiate. The time and manner of your death were both fixed, but what you did before that? Well, that was your choice. You could choose how to live, how to act, and most importantly, you could choose how to meet your inevitable end. And this belief shaped the Norse world. If the end is certain, then what matters isn't survival, but how you meet the end when it arrives. And this didn't apply to just humans. Even the gods were bound by fate. Everyone would meet the fate woven for them, regardless of how much they struggled against it. Odin was no exception, except for one thing. In his endless pursuit of knowledge, he uncovered something most of us would never want to know: the end of everything. He learned when and how he would die, the fate of the other gods, and the shape of the end itself, Ragnarok. The death of gods, the collapse of order, the sky ripped open, and the world left burning, and Odin himself devoured by Fenrir, the wolf he helped raise and later bound. This was not a vague prophecy. It was specific, certain, and Odin knew. That's the key difference. Most beings walked toward fate in ignorance of it, but Odin walked towards it fully aware of what waited for him at the end, and instead of accepting it, he spent the rest of his days trying to outthink his fate, gathering knowledge, preparing, manipulating, and trying to find some weakness in something that does not bend. But what exactly was Odin trying to prevent? Ragnarok wasn't simply the death of a god or the fall of a kingdom. In Norse myth, it was the end of the world itself. It would begin with what the Norse called Fimbulwinter, a great winter that would last for years. No summer or harvest, just cold and hunger spreading across the world. Human society would begin to collapse, brothers would turn against brothers, and families would fall apart. While the world of man was tearing itself apart, the enemies of the gods would begin to break free. Fenrir, the great wolf, would escape his chains. The serpent Jormungandr would rise from the sea. Loki would return to lead the enemies of the gods into the final battle. And when that battle came, the gods already knew how it would end. Thor would kill the world serpent, but die from its poison. Freyr would fall, Heimdall and Loki would kill each other, and Odin would be devoured by Fenrir. This was the future Odin saw. Not a vague prophecy or a possibility, but an absolute certainty. Once he knew that ending, everything he did after that began to make sense. Because Odin wasn't chasing knowledge out of curiosity anymore. He was looking for a way around the end. Odin paid a high price for the knowledge he gained. But if you knew that such a fate awaited you, is there any price you wouldn't pay to change it? Everything Odin did after learning of Ragnarok became preparation. He gathered warriors into Valhalla, filling its halls with those who died in battle, training for the final war that he knew was coming. He interfered with the affairs of both gods and men. He manipulated bloodlines, encouraged conflict, and shaped events in ways that might strengthen his side when the end finally arrived. Even Fenrir's binding was an attempt to delay the inevitable. The wolf. Fenrir had been raised amongst the gods, but as it grew stronger, Odin knew what it would eventually become. So Odin bound him with a chain that would hold him until the final days, hoping to delay a fate that had already been foretold. But fate does not break when resisted. It tightens, and the more Odin struggled against it, the more he ensured his own destruction. Every act meant to prevent Ragnarok helped bring it closer. Odin is often remembered as wise, but wisdom did not save him. The problem was not that Odin lacked knowledge. If anything, he had too much of it. Because once Odin saw how the world would end, he began treating fate as if it was a problem that could be solved. Like it was a problem to prepare for, something that could be studied, or even avoided if he understood it well enough. But that was never how fate worked in the Norse world. Fate was not a puzzle to solve. Rather, it was a truth to endure. The fabric of fate had already been woven. Thor would fight, Loki would betray, Fenrir would break free, and Odin would fall. The Norse people did not tell this story to glorify the strength and wisdom of their gods. They told it to prepare themselves. Ragnarok was not a failure of the gods, it was a reminder that no one escapes the end. Honor was not found in surviving forever, it was found in facing what cannot be changed. Odin's tragedy wasn't his death, it was that he spent his entire life refusing to accept that he would. Odin knew the end was coming, and in the end, that knowledge may have destroyed him. His story reminds us that no amount of knowledge, wisdom, or preparation can change what is meant to be. Not because fate is cruel, but because some truths are not meant to be escaped, only faced.